Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so excited to crochet with you today. We are going to learn how to turn these into this. I won't be showing you how to make a granny square in this video, but if you don't know how, you can go check out these two videos before you start this project. Everything I'm using in this video today, I've shared with you in the description below, so be sure and check that out. Give this video a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's go ahead and get started on making our granny square tumbler wrap. For this granny square, I love this cotton from Hobby Lobby. This is a weight of 4, and I used a 5mm crochet hook. You can use whatever type of yarn you want. If it's bigger, you'll have to adjust. If it's bigger or smaller, you'll have to adjust how many rows you're putting in your granny square. But for like a standard 40-ounce tumbler, like a Stanley, I used a weight 4 cotton yarn, 5mm hook, and then I did 6 rows on my granny square. So first things first is we need to connect these two granny squares in order to make our tumbler wrap. Something I like to do that's a personal preference of mine, I put one of the fasten off points at the top and one of the fasten off points at the bottom, like this. There's no special reason why I do that, so you can do it however you want. To connect our granny squares, we're going to do the invisible seam or the ladder stitch. So you're going to want to grab the same color that you used for your outside color, and we're going to gather a good amount, and I'm just going to cut it off. You'll then want to use your tapestry needle. Okay, so we're going to start on these corner edges here. I'm going to start right here at the very beginning of the corner. You're going to want to put your needle into one stitch, into the middle of one stitch, and bring it out through the middle of the one next to it. We're going to pull this through. I'm going to leave a tail because we're going to need to fasten this together at the end. And we are going to come over here and we're going to do the same exact thing on the other side. So here's the beginning corner, sticking it through the middle of this stitch and through the middle of the very next one. And we're pulling that through. And then for the entire length, we are going to alternate sides. So with the invisible seam, we'll come over here, and you need to put it into this last stitch that you did on the side, and you'll put it through the middle on the next one. It'll be easier to tell once we get further down the square. So here is the last one we did on the side. So poke it through the middle on that one and bring it through the next one. If you've never done this seam before, or you've never sewed a granny square together before, the first few stitches can be a little difficult just because they're at the end. But once you get the hang of it, it does get easier. And honestly, for me, it just becomes mindless. Okay, so this is where we stitched the last time, so we'll go in the middle. Just like that. And that's all you have to do. So I'm just going to let you watch me do this. So I'm just going to keep doing this all the way to the end. This is a relatively quick project. Typically, I can make a tumbler wrap in about an hour, just with the granny squares. You have to make the granny squares separate, then weave in all your ends. This is basically just the construction of the tumbler wrap. These make great gifts. I make these for myself all the time and for my friends and family. When I want a different color vibe, I just make a new one. I've kind of been on this mission here lately where I try and see what I can make myself before I go buy something. So like if I'm trying to give a gift to somebody, I try and see what I could make for them first before I go out and buy something brand new. I'm kind of doing that with a lot of things in my house. What can I crochet instead of going and buying something? It's kind of part of my grandma hobbies. Okay, so you can kind of see why this is called the ladder stitch. And when you pull it, usually you wait to the end for this, when you pull it, it will close up and will be in an invisible seam. Just like that. Might have to tug it a little more. But this is why they call it the invisible seam, because it looks like your granny squares are just sitting right next to each other. So keep doing this all the way to the end, and once we get to the end, we'll do the final pull. All right, we're to the end now, and we can make our final pull to make sure it's all nice and tight. And making that pull should bring it all together, where you can kind of see it bunch up like that. You'll have to untighten it from there. But just to make sure everything is nice and secure. And now you can see that we have our connected granny square. Next, you will just want to finish off on the edges. What I like to do is the last spot that I stitched in, I like to weave in the end somewhere close. Then I make it go towards the wrong side of the granny square. I make sure it's still secure. And then with the tail from one of the fasten off spots of the granny square and the tail of my threading yarn, I like to tie a knot. And then from there, I will finish weaving in the ends. I'm going to do the same thing for this piece, and then I'm going to do the same process on the bottom of the square. I'm going to use both of these tails, and I'm going to tie them together in a knot to finish it off, and then I'm going to weave in those tails as well. Now we have our granny squares that are connected together, and I forgot to mention earlier, when you're connecting your granny squares, you want to make sure that both of the correct sides are facing the right way. So this is the right side of the granny square, and these are the back sides of the granny square. If you happen to put a right side and a wrong side, that's okay, but we really want it to be right side and right side. So this is the front of the invisible join, and the back of your invisible join is going to have a little bit of a bump, and that's perfectly fine. This is going to be covered up by the cup. So now that we've got both of our granny squares joined together, we need to add the very top and the bottom border that also has our ties to tie it around the tumbler. So I'm going to use the white yarn that I used for part of the granny square. You can use whichever color you want. So very first thing, we're going to make a slip knot. And before we even connect it to our granny square, we need to chain 30. This is going to be the first string of our tie. I've got my chain 30 in my white yarn. So again, making sure we are on the right side of the granny squares. We are going to connect our chain 30 into this first corner hole, and we are going to connect it with a single crochet. And then we are going to put one more single crochet in the corner. And now we are going to single crochet all the way across this border. So put a single crochet in your very next stitch. And in every stitch after that. Now once you get to the connected corners, you don't need to put a stitch into the seam. We are just going to put 2 single crochet in each of the connected corner holes. So there's 1, 2, skip over this and go straight into this corner. 1 and 2, and then you'll continue putting a single crochet in each stitch all the way down. And we've made it to our corner, so you're going to do 2 single crochet into the corner, and then to finish the rest of this off, you're going to chain 30. just like we did in the beginning. All right, and to finish that off, you're going to cut your yarn, fasten it off, and then pull it really tight so that it holds your stitches in place. And then when you cut it, don't cut it all the way to the knot. Cut it a little above. It leaves a cute little pigtail. Okay, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other end. We're gonna make sure it's pulled nice and tight. Just cut it a little bit above the knot. And there you have the top border of your tumbler wrap. So to do this on the bottom, you're gonna do the same steps, just turn it around and start in this corner. So do all of the steps that we did. If you need to rewind and watch it back again, go ahead and do that. But to start, you chain 30, connect it into the corner with 2 single crochet all the way to this corner, 2 single crochet, 2 single crochet all the way down, end with 2 single crochet in the corner, and then chain 30. Once you've done that, we'll meet right back here and look at our completed tumbler wrap. All right, if you've done the top and the bottom borders, this is what your granny square tumbler wrap should look like. All nice and clean with ties at the end. And it's so cute. I really like the colors I picked for this. It's really giving me a summer beach feeling. So let's see what it looks like on our tumbler. So I have just a standard 40-ounce tumbler. This isn't a Stanley, but what I did is I used the body of it to measure with my granny square, and that's how I knew how big to make it. So I wanted the tie to be able to be on the bottom and on the top. So I wanted my granny square to cover most of the body of the tumbler. If you're using a smaller yarn, you'll just need to add more rows to your granny square. If you're using a bigger yarn or a bigger hook, you'll just need to add less rows to make it the size you want. So just use your tumbler to measure it out. So let's tie this. It goes on just like this. You tie it over the handle. I like to put mine in little bows. Just like that. And there you have your granny square tumbler wrap. Now in my experience, it doesn't slide down too much, but even if it does slide, it's not going to slide off because it's tied here at the top. And then if you wanted to add another little tie right here, you can. So that is our granny square tumbler wrap. Super cute. Thank you so much for coming along and crocheting with me today. I hope your project turned out just how you wanted it. If this video was helpful for you, give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more crochet videos, and leave me a comment if you have any questions or you just want to say hey. I'd love to hear from you. Happy crocheting, and I'll see you next time.